Oh my god, I'm still recovering from my hangover with the Ambassador Group. It was really fun. Right now we are in the Galaxy Kepler 186F. And yeah, I'm just hungry, looking around the galaxy, what I should eat, or I don't know. I'm very curious about. I've never been here, so let's see what.
Hey boss, sorry for interrupting you, but we are almost dragged by a black hole. I'm so sorry, by a black hole. And what should we do? We just landed in the next planet, or do we just getting dragged? What would you do? Please, boss, tell me.
Captain Bobby, I told you thousands of times that we should take risk. So, let's drag into it. Just let it flow, and I'm totally sure we will be fine, Captain Bobby. Remember that you are a robot. I am immortal. I am just such a elevated, like his being. I don't know what to do. Just let it flow. Let it go.
Hey boss, I'm thinking you're still very drunk from the other party. What you do? Well, whatever. We just go ahead and let's go.
Yeah, let's go, Captain Bobby. But just let me finish, man. Just 1 second. So yeah, people, I will start hearing about childhood trauma. That I think a lot of humans just pass through these kind of episodes. I think people don't realize how important it is to just getting deep into your childhood and just think about your parents and everything. For me, it was different because we are such a evolved species, so we don't have this kind of feelings, traumas and stuff, and we just have another mentality. But I really wanted to learn about humans and psychic and this kind of trauma. So while we are figuring out what will happen to us, our ship, and our lives during the black hole, I will just meditate and enjoy this next podcast. So yeah, I will let you know, people. Bye.
I just love you, boss. Let's go.
Okay, so are you ready to dive deep today? Because I am,
Always.
yeah, this is going to be a good one. We're talking Carl Jung.
Oh, yeah.
And I know what you might be thinking, oh, Carl Jung, that's kind of dry and academic, right? But trust me, this is not going to be some boring psych lecture.
Yeah.
We're actually going to uncover like the really practical stuff that Jung had to say about relationships and even just everyday life. So
it's surprisingly relevant.
it is really relevant. It's amazing how much his ideas still resonate today.
Yeah, and I think for this deep dive, we're looking at that interview with the therapist, Orion Taraban, on the Soft White Underbelly YouTube channel.
Yes.
Have you seen that one?
I have seen that one, and it's intense.
It's so good.
There's a lot there, and we could probably do like a whole series on just that one interview.
Oh, easily. There's so many good quotes.
So many good quotes. And in fact, one of the quotes that stood out from that interview, I actually wrote it down because it's just so good. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves."
That's a good one.
Isn't that a good one?
That's a good one.
I don't know about you, but I hear that, and I instantly think of like a few people who I've had problems with in the past.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, everyone's probably nodding their heads right now and going, oh, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Right.
But it's true, though, because it's not about, like, blame it. It's not about going, oh, that person, there's so whatever it is. It's really about using that as, like, a mirror to look back at ourselves, which can be an uncomfortable thing to do, but that's what shadow work is all about, right?
No.
It's about looking at those parts of ourselves that we don't like to admit are there,
Right.
or that we've kind of shoved down.
Right. Or that we project onto other people.
Exactly.
Because we don't want to see it in ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so much easier to see it out there in the world
way easier
than to actually say, oh, wait a minute, am I like that?
Yeah. Are those tendencies in me somewhere?
Right. And that's like the classic thing. You know, if you spot it, you got it.
Yeah.
And it's our shadow talking.
Totally.
And one example that the therapist used in the interview really stuck with me. It was about money.
Mm.
He said, think about someone who, let's say, spends money really impulsively. You know, maybe they're always buying shoes they don't need or whatever it is.
Mm.
But they're also the first person to judge someone else for, overspending on something completely different.
Yeah, like as if their version is fine,
Exactly.
but the other person's is a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he was talking about how that's all stemming from the same kind of root issue.
Right.
It's about this impulsivity or this lack of control.
Right.
It's just manifesting in different ways.
And so they're seeing their own shadow.
Yeah.
They're seeing it reflected back at them. And that's why it's so irritating.
Absolutely. It's like looking in a mirror.
It's like a funhouse mirror.
Yes, exactly.
Where it's like distorted, but it's still you.
Yeah, and we don't like what we see.
Right. Oh, man. Now I'm thinking about all the things that irritate me about other people.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, no.
Now the tables have turned.
Now I got to go do some shadow work.
Right. But it's not about making anyone feel bad. It's not about turning every little annoyance into like a therapy session. Right.
But it is about this self-awareness,
Yeah.
right? The more we understand our own shadows, the less we're going to project them onto others in these really harmful ways.
Yeah.
Because it can get pretty dark.
And it can go so much deeper than just like personal annoyances. This whole idea of projection. It can
Yeah.
play out on a much larger scale when we talk about things like
Oh, absolutely.
prejudice and discrimination.
It's often because we haven't dealt with those things in ourselves,
Yeah,
so we project them outward.
exactly. And then it becomes about those people,
Yeah.
right? Instead of about like, wait a minute, we're all human here. We all have these capacities.
We all have that capacity for whatever it is.
Right, for greed, for anger, for fear. It's part of the human experience.
It's part of being human, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that Jung was trying to get us to
Yeah.
grasp.
Yeah.
Like, to really understand ourselves. We have to understand, like, the full spectrum of...
Yeah, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And speaking of ugly, sometimes our perceptions of beauty can be a little messed up, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Jung had some very interesting things to say about that.
Definitely.
So, we're talking about this whole shadow self thing and how we project those parts of ourselves onto other people.
Right.
But it also makes me think about this whole idea of what's considered normal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, who gets to decide that anyway?
Right.
Jung had that great quote where he said, show me a sane man and I will cure him for you.
Interesting.
Or
Makes
no.
you think.
It does make you think. Yeah. And there's that other quote, I can't remember who said it, but it's like, the only normal people are the ones you don't know very well.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right. Like, once you get to know anybody,
Right. Everybody's a little bit.
everybody's got their quirks.
Yeah, their own brand of weirdness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe normal is kind of an illusion
Totally an illusion.
or like a moving target.
Right. Because what's considered normal like now
Right.
is probably going to be totally different.
Totally different.
Like 100 years ago.
Yeah, or even like in a different culture,
Totally.
right?
Right.
What's normal here might be totally strange somewhere else.
Exactly. So it's all relative.
Yeah. And I think this pressure to be normal,
Yeah. Yeah.
it can really stifle people.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it makes people afraid to be themselves.
Yeah, because you don't want to stand out too much. You don't want to be the odd one out.
Right? You want to fit in.
Yeah.
And so we end up kind of suppressing those parts of ourselves.
Yeah. You just kind of go along with the crowd.
Right. And that could really prevent us from, like,
Yeah.
thinking for ourselves.
From questioning things. Yeah.
Right. Because if we're so busy trying to fit in, we're not going to...
Yeah, you're not going to rock the boat.
Exactly.
You're not going to challenge anything.
And Jung was all about challenging the status quo.
For sure, questioning everything.
Right. Starting with ourselves. Which actually kind of leads us to another interesting Jungian concept. I got to be honest, when I first read this quote, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it.
Oh, really? Let's hear it.
Okay, so Jung said, a particularly beautiful woman is a source of terror, a terrible disappointment. So what do you make of that? I mean, it just seems a little harsh.
Yeah.
Like, are all beautiful women really that terrifying and disappointing?
Well, I think you have to remember with Jung, he's not always being literal.
Okay.
It's more about like the underlying psychological dynamics at play.
So it's not really about the women themselves. It's about
us.
us.
Yeah, it's about how we perceive them. Remember we were talking about projection earlier?
Right, right. So we're projecting something onto them.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it comes down to our expectations.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this.
Because we all have these ideas in our heads, right? About what beauty is, what it means.
especially these days with like social media and everything.
Oh, yeah, it's a minefield out there.
Right, like you're constantly bombarded with these images of like airbrush perfection.
And it's easy to start comparing yourself to that, even though, deep down it's not real.
Exactly. So we build up these unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
And then when someone doesn't live up to them,
We feel disappointed.
which is kind of unfair to the other person
It is totally unfair.
because they never asked to be put on a pedestal in the first place.
Exactly. They're just trying to be themselves.
And then Jung also called beautiful women a source of terror, which I still don't really get.
Well, think about it. If you've bought into this idea that beauty is like the most important thing,
Which a lot of people do, let's be honest.
a lot of people do, and you meet someone who embodies that ideal, it can be really intimidating.
Because what if they reject you?
Exactly. The stakes feel so much higher.
Right, because you've already projected so much onto them.
Yeah, you've already built them up in your mind to be this perfect being.
And nobody's perfect.
No one. And that's kind of the point Jung is trying to make. He's saying, look, if you're so focused on this idealized version of beauty, you're going to miss out on real connection. Because real connection isn't about perfection. It's about accepting someone for who they truly are.
Flaws and all.
Flaws and all. And that goes for ourselves, too.
So how do we even begin to like untangle all of this?
I think it starts with awareness. Just being aware of those projections, those expectations that we're carrying around, and then maybe asking ourselves, where did those beliefs come from? Are they really true? Or are they just something we've been told?
It's like questioning the stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can start to rewrite those stories to create a more realistic and compassionate view of ourselves and others.
That's a good goal to strive for.
For sure. And it's not easy work, but I think it's worth it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, that was quite a deep dive.
It always is with Jung.
It really is.
Yeah.
He makes you think about things in a whole new way.
That's the beauty of it.
It really is. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling inspired to do a little shadow work of your own,
Please do.
yes, please do. We highly recommend checking out that interview with Orion Taraban on the Soft White Underbelly YouTube channel. It's a great starting point for exploring these Jungian concepts in more depth. And as always, thanks for diving deep with us.